So we're back at the goalkeepers. Remember the goalkeepers? This is the Bill Gates funded bullshit philanthropy thing. Goalkeepers, right? And then they presented an award to a young lady who was an environmentalist, and then she said that there shouldn't be a world with billionaires, shouldn't exist. So that was the big story. She challenged that.
I'd like to invite you to an island where.
So here, Bill Gates is on a panel, and you know who this guy is? He's
Kumar from Harold and Kumar.
Yes.
Luminary.
And so watch his brilliant question. Watch this.
My first question, I think, has to be for Bill here. And because of the intro, I'm dying to know, why did you put microchips in our vaccines? And what was the coolest thing you saw when you tracked all of us?
Isn't that funny? Isn't that funny? Taking down a straw man he just invented.
Look at his face. Look at his stupid.
No, the real question is, Epstein didn't really commit suicide, did he, Bill? That's the real question you should have asked. And follow up, how many teen sex slaves would you say you vaccinated the hard way, if you catch my drift? No, the real question is, does Melinda have some kind of juicy evidence of all the creepy shit you did on Rape Island, and that's why she hasn't committed suicide yet? No, the real question is, did you see Harold and Kumar go to White Castle? I'm a moderately funny, if I'm being generous, he's a moderately funny actor. Do you think they picked me for this on purpose because I'm a Trevor Noah level midwit and rich liberals associate Indians with math and science?
Just dress me up kind of gay, put me out there. They think I know about science.
No, the real question is, do you think maybe because I'm a typical smug twat actor who knows jack shit about shit, that's why I relish ironically mocking some straw man conspiracy theory that no one in real life has ever said to me once? But I'm a hack. Here we go.
Do you think it's weird that it looks like I didn't wear socks, but when you look up close, it's just weird, almost flesh-colored socks?
They are flesh-colored socks.
I thought you didn't have socks. That's what was so annoying while he was doing his dumb bit. I was like, does he not have socks on like a Dominican? Oh, no, he has flesh-colored socks.
He looks like the Indian Jimmy Kimmel.
Wow. I was trying to think of what he reminds me of, and that's exactly it. Wow.
No, okay. The real question, what was different from your experience about misinformation in the past 2 years? I mean, you've been a target, obviously, of something like this before.
Oh, this poor farmer.
The same, or have the last 2 years had a markedly different experience?
No, the pandemic was completely unexpected. I'd say that
even though we predicted it a couple months before.
Now, Kumar, I know you don't know anything, so I'm going to tell you.
Completely unexpected, even though we had been talking about it for years and years prior, saying it was coming, and then we had a simulation of it, like just a couple of months before it happened. Completely unexpected. This guy is such a fucking bullshitter. So here we go. He's got more to say.
biggest tragedy is that it fragmented society, where certain sources, if they told you to wear a mask, that was the last thing you were going to do. Or they told you, to get the vaccine, particularly to protect, reduce transmission to elderly people, they didn't comply. And so it is a phenomena that held us back and hurt us in a pretty dramatic way.
So he's blaming the unvaccinated again. He's blaming the people who were skeptical. First of all, the guy who lied about masks, I wonder why people didn't trust Fauci. Maybe because he lied blatantly at the top of his lungs repeatedly over and over about masks. Maybe that's why.
Maybe the fragments are people that heard him on Tuesday and people that saw him on Friday.
Yeah, maybe those are the fragments. Bill Gates is still doing this. He's still dividing the country, pushing a culture war. He's using all his money and all his influence to push a culture war. You want to know the guy who lied about masks?
In the United States, people should not be walking around with masks.
What?
You're sure of it, because people are listening really closely to this.
Right now, people should not be walking. There's no reason to be walking around with a mask. When you're in the middle of an outbreak, wearing a mask might make people feel a little bit better, and it might even block a droplet, but it's not providing the perfect protection that people think that it is. And often there are unintended consequences. People keep fiddling with the mask and they keep touching their face.
And can you get some schmutz sort of staying inside there?
Of course. But when you think masks, you should think of healthcare providers needing them and people who are ill.
I like he goes, "Are you sure?" Because like I forgot that part
Yeah.
where he was like,
There's a lot of people watching. No, I'm
like-
going to lie to their faces right now.
What do you think? I'm Fauci. You think I'm not sure?
So Bill Gates still blaming the unvaxxed. Can you believe that shit? Did you see what he said about, some people wouldn't take the thing so they wouldn't infect their grandparents?
It's sad. It was.
I thought we proved that. So that was the point of this whole show. So that's why people called me anti-vax, because we debunked shit like that. Because they kept saying, like Rachel Maddow said, if you get vaccinated, it'll end the pandemic. Now, I knew that was not true. I knew that was a big pharma-funded lie that was repeated by people like Rachel Maddow and him and other people, and everybody in the corporate media. That was never true. And so we've been debunking that for over a year now on this show. People called us anti-vax for debunking that, for telling the truth about COVID.
A guy that got vaxxed, by the way.
I got double
sick
vaxxed
from it.
I got double vaxxed and I got injured. I got vaccine injured from it. And now people are just sticking their heads in the sand about all the ramifications.
Because you know why? You're the sucker that is like arguing about the thing they're saying, and all like you're Kal Penn.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, look, or you're Don Lemon with the climate change thing. Like, I don't actually care. I hate these people.
Right.
Can you just give me the thing I need about the people I hate? What are you worried about? Is that the hill you want to die on? The details?
Yes. Yeah, I want to die on the hill of the details about
right?
COVID policy and how they. So now they say he was lying then. I've talked to doctors who are smarter than this guy, and they say, no, he was actually telling the truth then. And then he started lying after.
Oh my God.
So I don't know. Fauci says he was lying then. This is what Fauci says. Well, after you do that, after you go on 60 Minutes and lie about the most important thing in the world, shouldn't you have to resign? No, you know why he didn't resign? Because Big Pharma, which really controls our government, wanted him there because he's a corrupt piece of shit criminal, and they knew he was going to keep lying for them and keep pushing money-making schemes, which is what he did.
Well, if Trump had done it, it would be a window into his evil soul. If Fauci does it, he's just a wooden
He's trying
puppet
to
that
help
wants
you.
to be a real boy.
That's right.
And he's going to learn.
Let's hear Bill Gates one more
My
time.
first question, I think, has to be for Bill here. And because of the intro, I'm dying to know, why did you put microchips in our vaccines? And what was the coolest thing you saw when you tracked all of us? The real question, what was different in your experience of misinformation in the past 2 years? I mean, you've been a target, obviously, of something like this before. Is it more of the same, or have the last 2 years had a markedly different experience?
The people who were a target of smears and disinformation, Kumar, those were called the people who did the Barrington Declaration. And people like Bill Gates smeared those people. That's what happened. It wasn't the other way around. Go ahead.
How much you want this idiot? I know, I never met him, but I promise you, he's talked about, like, I don't like the comedy that punches down.
Yeah.
I like punching up, like the January 6 people attacking Bill Gates, a farmer.
So let's hear Bill Gates.
Pandemic was completely unexpected. I'd say the biggest tragedy is that
He just lied right there, by the way. So did you see him go like this? The pandemic was completely unexpected. Why did he
does
do
it every
that?
time.
Why does he do this? Like he's
The biggest tragedy is my friend Jeffrey Epstein's suicide.
That's right. Let's watch.
so, pandemic was
Was a surprise, right? It was a surprise. That's what we're
You know
saying.
what?
It was a surprise.
He's doing Mary Catherine Gallagher from SNL. Remember Molly Shannon? She was, when I get nervous, I stick my hands in my armpits
Yes.
like this. That's what he's doing.
That's what he's doing.
completely unexpected. I'd say the biggest tragedy is that it fragmented society, where certain sources, if they told you to wear a mask, that was the last thing.
You mean certain sources? You mean like Fauci said, don't wear a mask on 60 Minutes?
And those sources were the same guy.
And then the same guy said, I lied. You can trust me now.
Well, I believe yesterday, Fauci.
were going to do, or they told you, to get the vaccine, particularly to protect, reduce transmission to elderly people.
So that right there is what this show has been debunking for over a year.
Including Bill Gates. At the time, we didn't know it didn't do that.
Bill Gates has now said he's going back and forth. He's going back and forth on this. Here's what Bill Gates has said about vaccines and COVID before.
It wasn't until early February when I was in a meeting that experts at the foundation said, there's no way, there's been too much travel without diagnosis.
So now he's trying to pretend right here, he's trying to pretend that the reason why they couldn't contain the pandemic was because too many people were traveling. That's not why. That's not why. That's why he's doing all this, because he's lying.
This is also the time he decided to stop wearing sweaters on stage.
So here we go. Watch this.
For us to contain this. And then at that point, we didn't really understand the fatality rate. We didn't understand that it's a fairly low fatality rate and that it's a disease mainly of the elderly, kind of like flu is, although a bit different.
He just said, wow, now we didn't know that the fatality rate was low. We always did know that.
How many tells can one guy have? He's
Right?
like tapping his chin and doing this.
Million tells. So this guy says, sign someone's lying, over-exaggeration, hand gestures, and face touching. They knew it was a low fatality rate.
Jeffrey's dead now.
And now here he is telling us that it's a disease of the elderly. That's what people were saying. The Barrington Declaration people were saying at the beginning of COVID, that we should target our help to people. We should have targeted vaccines. We should have targeted lockdowns. We should have targeted mask wearing. We should target people who are vulnerable. And who are the people who are vulnerable to COVID? The elderly with comorbidities and the obese. That's who's vulnerable. People with comorbidities, if you're a diabetic, or if you already have cancer, and if you're obese. 77% of the people hospitalized from COVID were obese or overweight. They never say that. And then plus the average age of death from COVID over the age of life expectancy. They don't tell you any of this. So now, but he still today goes back to his goalkeepers thing and still wants you to be angry at half the country for not doing something that wouldn't have made a fucking difference. We could never, ever vaccinate our way out of this pandemic, ever, especially with a leaky vaccine. And what is a leaky vaccine, Jimmy? That means if you get vaccinated, it doesn't stop you from getting the virus and it doesn't stop you from transmitting it. And here he is still saying that. He's still pushing that line, wanting you to be angry at your neighbor for your grandmother dying. That's not their fault. The person who made the grandmother die was Dr. Fauci because he funded gain-of-function research that developed the COVID-19 virus, and that's according to Jeffrey Epstein, the chairman of the Lancet study group on COVID-19. That the COVID-19 virus originated in U.S. biolabs. So that was invented by fucking Fauci. That's who's responsible. But this guy wants you to hate your neighbor for not getting vaccinated, even though he knows that doesn't stop, that never was going to do what he said it did. But he wants you to blame your neighbor for your grandmother getting COVID and dying.
Is that what that goalkeepers thing when I was watching Kal Penn, it looked like a late night infomercial where like the host was like, now Bill, tell us about the.
Yeah.
Is that what that is, an infomercial to say it's not my fault, kind of?
That's all they have is dividing the country disingenuously, because that's what this is. Dividing the country. And then, of course, he gets a bullshit.
My first question, I think...
He gets a bullshit Hollywood guy to ask him the question. Isn't it weird they have a Hollywood guy ask him that question? They don't have, I don't know, somebody who's skeptical of the COVID narrative? Isn't that weird?
or just somebody that. Like,
And you know
yeah.
how they like to rip Joe Rogan and all the doctors that Joe Rogan brought on his show? Why don't they bring on Joe Rogan and all the doctors they brought on that show? You know why? Because they would get humiliated by Joe Rogan and all the doctors Joe Rogan brought on. You want it. Why don't you humiliate Joe Rogan? Bring him on your show. Because Joe Rogan brought on Dr. Sanjay Gupta on his show. And guess who got humiliated? Dr. Sanjay Gupta got humiliated by a pot-smoking comedian. Why? Because they're liars and they're big pharma propagandists, and it doesn't take much to cut through that. But Joe Rogan did it. He got them to admit they were lying at the top of their lungs about ivermectin. And why would they lie about ivermectin? Because if ivermectin could treat COVID, they couldn't get their emergency use authorization for their vaccines, and they would lose a couple of $100 billion. And how much is $100 billion? It's enough to buy every person in the government and the media, coast to coast. That's how much $100 billion
left over
is.
too, I bet.
A lot of change left over.
You know that so funny to see where the power intersects with like the dippy young kid fake Brooklyn left, because like when you had a Boogaloo Boy, like, you don't platform a wrong idea because when they talk, then people won't know what's the right idea. And so then they think they're being good commies with it. And then some rich, that suits them just fine.
That's right.
That suits them just fine. You're like, oh, we're the victim and don't platform them. Come on, Cal.
Bill Gates. When I mix with regular people all the time in comedy clubs, right? I don't just hang out in news circles. I hang out with regular people in comedy clubs,
Well,
regular
flappers.
comedians, regular people.
Yeah, right.
And they think Bill Gates is a good guy. They think that if you say
Is that crazy?
if you say something negative about Bill Gates, you're some kind of crazy conspiracy
You know what
theorist.
someone said to me? A real quote where I was saying like Bill Gates. And he goes, what do you say? What do you mean the Giving Pledge isn't real? You're the Warren Buffett and him, the Giving.
Yes.
Like, I don't even know what to say to somebody after that. I'm like, oh, I feel like I told little kids Santa's not real and their
Right.
parents are going to be mad. In this house, we say Santa and the Giving Pledge are real.
Virginia Beach, Richmond, Arlington, San Jose, Miami, West Palm Beach. Go to jimmydorecomedy.com for a link for all the tickets and become a premium member while you're there.